There are moments in life when everything feels late. Late breakthrough, late answer, late opportunity, late change. And panic tries to move in like an uninvited guest. Your mind starts racing. Your heart feels pressure. Your prayers start sounding more like emergency alarms than conversations with God. You look at the clock, the calendar, your age, your situation, and you start thinking, God, you're behind, but heaven has never been late. God does not operate on your panic clock. He operates on his purpose clock. We panic when we don't see movement. God moves when we don't see the preparation. While you're worried about the delay, God is working on the design. A seed in the ground looks like nothing is happening. No sound, no motion, no evidence. But under the soil, roots are forming. Strength is building. Structure is developing. If that seed came up too early, it would collapse under the weight of what it's meant to carry. The silence you're in is not punishment, it's preparation. God is not just trying to give you something, he's trying to shape you for what he's giving. Because if your blessing arrives before your character is ready, the blessing becomes a burden. We think God is late because we only see the need. God sees the whole picture. You're asking for relief. God is arranging results. You're asking for escape. God is building endurance. You're asking for speed. God is focused on stability. Panic says it's not happening. Faith says it's happening where I can't see. And here's what we forget. God's timing protects you from things you prayed for at the wrong time. There are doors that would have destroyed you last year that will bless you this year. There are relationships that would have distracted you before that will support your purpose now. Delay is not denial. Delay is divine alignment. God waits until the door is ready, the people are ready, the provision is ready, and you are ready. Because God is not just delivering a moment, he's delivering a future. So don't let panic push you out of position. Panic makes you move ahead of God. And when you move ahead of God, you have to sustain what only God could have supplied. Stay planted, stay prayerful, stay steady. When heaven says now, nothing can stop it. Not opposition, not history, not mistakes, not people. When God releases his timing, acceleration happens. What took years to wait for can change in a moment. So breathe. The God who promised is the God who schedules, and he has never missed an appointment. It's easy to believe that if God were truly present, things would be moving faster. We associate activity with attention, noise with nearness, visible change with divine involvement. So when life grows quiet and prayers seem to echo without response, the heart starts to whisper a dangerous conclusion. Maybe God has stepped away. But silence is not the same thing as absence. Just because heaven is quiet does not mean heaven is inactive. We are used to instant feedback. Messages get delivered in seconds. Information travels at the speed of light. But God has never been in a hurry to satisfy our sense of urgency. He has already said, growth happens in the doing, not just in the hearing. If God kept talking at every step, we would become dependent on constant signals instead of developing spiritual maturity. There are also battles happening on your behalf that you cannot see. Just because you don't see movement in the physical realm doesn't mean nothing is shifting in the spiritual realm. God can be rearranging circumstances, softening hearts, opening doors, and closing others, all while your situation looks unchanged. The delay you experience may actually be protection from something you cannot yet recognize. His silence shields you from rushing into outcomes that are not aligned with his best. Silence forces you to slow down. It strips away distractions and drives you inward. When the noise of answers fades, you become more aware of God's presence rather than just his provisions. You begin to seek him, not just solutions. And that shift changes everything. When you learn to value his presence in the quiet, your faith stops being dependent on constant results. God's quiet seasons refine motives. When blessings are visible, it's easy to praise. When results are evident, gratitude flows naturally. But when nothing seems to be happening, your worship becomes a choice. Loving and trusting God without visible reward purifies your relationship with Him. It moves your faith from transaction to transformation. So the next time heaven seems silent, don't mistake it for distance. Silence can mean God is closer than ever, working deeply, intentionally, and strategically. His quietness is not a sign that He left. It is often proof that He is carefully shaping something that cannot be rushed. Blessings carry weight. Opportunities bring responsibility. Influence demands integrity. If the inner life hasn't grown strong enough to support the outer gift, the very thing you prayed for can end up crushing you. That's why delay is sometimes an act of mercy. God sees not just what you want to hold, but what that thing will require from you once you have it. He prepares the person before He releases the provision. We tend to focus on outcomes, but God focuses on capacity. You might be ready emotionally to receive something, but not spiritually steady enough to sustain it. You may desire the platform, but still need humility. You may want the relationship, but still need healing. You may ask for expansion, but still struggle with discipline. If God handed you the answer while these areas were undeveloped, success could expose weaknesses instead of strengthening you. Character growth rarely happens in comfort. It's formed in the waiting rooms of life, where patience is stretched, trust is tested, and motives are revealed. When you don't get what you want immediately, you learn perseverance. When doors stay closed, you develop endurance. When recognition is delayed, humility has room to grow. These qualities may not feel like progress, but they are the foundation that keeps future blessings from collapsing. Delay also reveals what truly drives you. When the promise takes time, you find out whether you want the gift more than the giver. If your commitment fades because results are slow, the waiting period exposes misplaced priorities. But if your faith deepens, your prayers mature, and your obedience continues even without visible reward, then your relationship with God strengthens beyond circumstances. That kind of faith can handle greater responsibility because it is anchored in trust, not outcomes. There's a difference between being gifted and being ready. Talent can open a door, but character determines how long you stay in the room. Many people lose what they prayed for because they arrived there before they were prepared. God's delays help align your inner life with your future assignment. He shapes your reactions, adjusts your thinking, and strengthens your resolve so that when the blessing arrives, you don't mishandle it. Waiting also builds spiritual depth. Quick answers can produce shallow faith, but long seasons of trusting without seeing create roots that go deep. Those roots keep you steady when pressure comes later. Without delay, you might celebrate the blessing but crumble under the challenge that follows. God's timing develops resilience so you can handle both the gift and the test that comes with it. There are lessons learned only in the in-between seasons. Gratitude grows when you've had to wait. Wisdom develops when you've had time to reflect. Discernment sharpens when you've experienced disappointment without giving up. These qualities cannot be downloaded instantly. They form through experience. God uses delay as a classroom where life lessons are written on the heart. It's also possible that what you ask for needs to grow beyond its current form. God might be preparing something greater than your original request. If He gave it to you when you first asked, you would have settled for less than His best. Delay allows the situation, the people involved, and the timing itself to mature. What finally arrives may look different from what you imagined, but it will fit your life more completely. So when things feel postponed, don't assume rejection. Consider that you are in a season of development. God is strengthening your foundation so that the blessing enhances your life instead of overwhelming it. The waiting is shaping you into someone who can carry what you've been praying for with wisdom, stability, and grace. It is easy to see life through a narrow lens. We focus on the moments in front of us, the obstacles we can touch, and the deadlines we have set in our minds. When everything seems delayed or unclear, panic rises because our vision is limited. We see the small picture and we assume that what we see is all there is. But God operates on a much larger canvas, one that stretches beyond our comprehension. Faith requires us to trust that what we cannot see is just as real, just as purposeful, and often far more significant than what is immediately visible. Panic often comes from thinking that speed equals success. When doors remain closed or answers are delayed, the mind starts racing with worst-case scenarios. We imagine that failure is inevitable or that we have been forgotten. But God is not bound by time in the same way we are. What we interpret as a delay is often divine orchestration. He sees outcomes before they occur, connections that will later be crucial, and opportunities that will align perfectly with his plan. Our impatience is a reflection of our limited perspective, not of his inability or absence. Faith requires recognizing that every season, even the ones that appear stagnant, serves a purpose. When you can't see the path clearly, it is easy to try to progress or take matters into your own hands. But when we act ahead of God's timing, we often create obstacles that were never meant to exist. Decisions made in panic frequently lead to detours, setbacks, or unnecessary complications. Trusting God's full picture means pausing, resisting the urge to control, and acknowledging that he is orchestrating details we cannot yet understand. God's timing is intentional. Every delay, every closed door, and every moment of silence is part of a design far greater than our own plans. What appears as inactivity is often a season of preparation for you, for others involved, and for the circumstances that will ultimately unfold. When we fixate only on what we see, we miss the hidden work being done. Spiritual growth, maturity, wisdom, and resilience are often cultivated in seasons of waiting. These qualities are necessary to carry the blessings God has prepared. Without this unseen work, what we receive might overwhelm us or fail to fulfill its intended purpose. Limited vision can also distort how we perceive challenges. Obstacles seem permanent, difficulties feel insurmountable, and setbacks appear as signs of failure. But God's perspective encompasses the entire story. What feels like a dead end may actually be a rerouting to a better path. What seems like a loss may be positioning you for a greater gain. What looks like silence may be a period of protection, ensuring you do not receive something before you are ready to handle it. Panic occurs when we forget that God's view extends beyond the moment to the ultimate outcome. Trusting God's full picture also involves recognizing the difference between what we desire and what we need. Human perspective is often short-sighted. We want immediate relief, tangible results, and visible evidence. But God sees the long-term effect, the unseen risks, and the impact that will extend beyond the immediate moment. He may delay the answer to protect you from harm, prepare others involved, or align circumstances in ways that will maximize the blessing. Panic only arises when we value our timetable over his purpose. Faith grows when we embrace the unseen. Believing without visible evidence develops endurance, patience, and perseverance. It strengthens the spirit to rely not on circumstance, but on the character and promises of God. When you trust what you cannot see, your heart learns to rest in God's sovereignty rather than being enslaved to uncertainty. This is a discipline that cannot be hurried, for it requires repeated choice to believe, to trust, and to wait without wavering. Seeing only part of the story can distort hope. When we focus solely on what is lacking, we risk losing sight of the progress being made in ways that are invisible. God's work is often strategic, layered, and precise, ensuring that when the moment comes, everything falls into place perfectly. Panic clouds judgment, distorts priorities, and encourages premature action. Faith, on the other hand, aligns our perspective with God's, teaching us to view life as he sees it, full of purpose, full of timing, and full of hope. In every situation, the choice is clear. We can allow limited vision to dictate fear, or we can trust God's comprehensive view. While we see pieces, he sees the masterpiece. While we feel stalled, he sees momentum. While we panic, he sees preparation. Faith involves living in the tension of uncertainty with the assurance that God's plan is bigger than any obstacle and more precise than any schedule. To trust God's full picture is to release the compulsion to control, to surrender the illusion that timing is ours to manage, and to accept that every moment of delay carries a hidden purpose. Our faith matures not by witnessing the unfolding plan in its entirety, but by committing to obedience, patience, and trust along the way. Even when we cannot see, God is always at work, and what appears late to us is always on time in his design. Many people do not realize how much damage can be done when we move ahead of God. Panic has a way of convincing us that we cannot wait any longer, that we must take action now or risk losing everything. In those moments, we rely on our own understanding, our own strength, and our own timing. But moving ahead of God often brings consequences we never anticipated. When we act before his timing, we step outside the protection of his plan. We may achieve temporary results, but they often come with unforeseen complications, disappointments, and burdens that could have been avoided. When we move ahead of God, we step out of alignment with his purposes. God's plan is not simply about giving us what we want. It is about guiding us into the best possible outcome for our lives and for the people around us. Every blessing, opportunity, and answer to prayer is connected to a larger design that we cannot see. Acting prematurely ignores that design and risks creating a situation that is incomplete or even harmful. We may open doors that should remain closed, make commitments we are not ready to honor, or take positions of influence that our character cannot yet sustain. Acting ahead of God also places unnecessary pressure on us. We try to force results, manage outcomes, and control circumstances that only he can orchestrate. This pressure can lead to stress, anxiety, and frustration. We carry burdens meant for God's timing alone, and the weight can be overwhelming. Instead of walking in peace, we walk in tension. And instead of experiencing God's provision, we experience the strain of trying to manufacture it ourselves. When we act out of panic, we often miss the lessons intended for the waiting period. God's delays are not mistakes or oversights. They are opportunities for growth. During these seasons, we are meant to develop patience, refine our character, and cultivate trust. By moving ahead, we short-circuit the spiritual development that God is orchestrating in our lives. The delay may feel frustrating, but it is part of a greater training ground. God is shaping resilience, wisdom, and maturity that are essential for sustaining what he will ultimately provide. Acting prematurely deprives us of the full benefit of that preparation. Moving ahead of God can also lead to disappointment. When we act before he has opened the door, we may encounter rejection, failure, or resistance. These setbacks are not necessarily a reflection of our abilities, but rather evidence that the timing was not yet right. God's timing is perfect because it aligns with readiness. Readiness in circumstances, readiness in others, and readiness in our own hearts. Acting too soon can create unnecessary obstacles that were never part of his plan, leaving us discouraged and questioning his faithfulness. Faith requires patience. Trusting God means believing that his timing is not only perfect, but protective. Waiting is not passive, it is active trust. It is choosing obedience, maintaining hope, and preparing ourselves for what is coming. When we move ahead of God, we bypass that process and risk entering situations that we are not yet equipped to handle. God's timing is a shield, and acting ahead removes that shield, leaving us vulnerable to difficulties that could have been avoided. When we remain in alignment with God's timing, blessings come with support, clarity, and sustainability, what may have seemed delayed arrives fully formed, complete, and prepared for us to handle it. Moving ahead may offer temporary satisfaction, but alignment ensures permanence, stability, and peace. The difference is often subtle at first, but over time, the benefits of waiting become clear. Those who wait on God find that when the right moment comes, everything falls into place in a way that could never have been achieved through panic or self-effort. In addition, moving ahead of God often disrupts relationships and opportunities around us. God's timing involves more than just our individual lives. It involves the right people, the right circumstances, and the right season. Acting prematurely can create conflicts, misunderstandings, and missed connections that were intended to support our growth or our calling. Patience allows God to align all elements in harmony, ensuring that when the door opens, every piece is ready to contribute to the fullness of His plan. Understanding the danger of moving ahead of God also requires humility. We must recognize that our perspective is limited and that our desire for speed does not equate to wisdom. God sees the whole picture, knows the end from the beginning, and orchestrates every detail in perfect sequence. Acting ahead is a statement that we believe our timing is better than His. And that assumption can lead to unnecessary mistakes, regrets, and setbacks. Humility helps us accept that waiting is part of the process, and that trusting God's timing is ultimately safer and wiser than attempting to control the outcome ourselves. Finally, moving ahead of God can distort our faith. It shifts the focus from reliance on His power and provision to reliance on our own abilities. It encourages independence instead of dependence, fear instead of trust, and action instead of obedience. Faith flourishes in alignment with God's timing because it acknowledges His sovereignty and recognizes that He knows best. Acting ahead undermines that faith, creating a cycle of anxiety, overexertion, and unmet expectations that could have been avoided through patience and trust. To walk in God's timing is to walk in freedom, peace, and provision. It is to allow the invisible work of preparation to shape our lives, character, and circumstances. Acting ahead may offer the illusion of progress, but trusting God ensures that what comes is complete, sustainable, and in perfect alignment with His purpose. Faith is often tested in ways that we do not anticipate. Life presents seasons of uncertainty, and the mind wants reassurance, evidence, and control. When we do not see immediate results, it is natural to feel anxious, frustrated, or even doubtful. But these moments reveal a critical truth. God's timing cannot be rushed, and His plan cannot be forced. Faith requires patience, trust, and the understanding that what is unseen is just as real and as powerful as what is visible. Panic says the promise is not coming. Faith says the promise is coming, even when the evidence is not yet visible. Moving ahead of God creates a tension between what we want and what God has ordained. Our human tendency is to take action when the delay feels too long, to push forward with our own strength, or to manipulate circumstances in hopes of producing the desired outcome. But God's timing is not dependent on our urgency. He orchestrates every moment, every opportunity, and every connection to align with the full plan He has for us. Acting too soon may produce temporary results, but it risks
loving you alone feels so beautiful. And yet, it hurts the most. You became my quiet sunrise, the dream I never dared to say. Every smile you gave so freely took my breath a little away. I held this love like fragile glass, so precious, soft and true. But every beat inside my heart was only reaching out to you. Unspoken love is sweet and painful, like honey mixed with rain. A tender hope I hold so tightly, while it slowly breaks me. Loving you from just one side now leaves my soul in silent blue. 'Cause the deeper that I fall alone, the lonelier I do. I can't blame my heart for choosing someone it could never keep. So I smile through hidden heartache and love you quietly. Unspoken love is sweet and painful, like honey mixed with rain. A tender hope I hold so tightly, while it slowly breaks me. Loving you from just one side now leaves my soul in silent blue. 'Cause the deeper that I fall alone, the lonelier I do. Maybe loving you in silence is the closest I can stay, though it leaves behind a sorrow that may never fade away. Unspoken love is sweet and painful, like honey mixed with rain. A tender hope I hold so tightly, while it slowly breaks me. Loving you from just one side now leaves my soul in silent blue. 'Cause the deeper that I fall